Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I know we haven't done this in a while, and I'm so glad. I'm so happy to get back going. Thank you, Evgeny, for all the hard work you do in putting this together. And we have our first guest of our podcast, and I'll let him do his own introduction. Kirk?
Thanks, Mehdi, for having me. I'm Kirk Zauderer with Auction Excellence and down here supporting the Big Valley Auto Auction.
It's kind of getting older over 20 years.
After 20 years.
It's kind of getting older over 10 years. Thank you, and we're glad to have you. You know, we've started this relationship with Kirk a couple of months ago, and it's probably one of the best relationships that we could have started. We're so happy for that. But before we get into that, I gotta ask you, hey, you're from Georgia. You travel it's a good 1,000 miles or so, something like that. What do you think of the Valley? Is it hotter than Georgia? What about the food? You know, what do you think?
So I'm originally from Georgia. I grew up in Georgia, but I've now moved to Wichita, Kansas.
Kansas.
Which is in the heart of America. It's like right the center of the geographic 48 states. And so it gets pretty hot in Kansas. Yeah. So, I mean, Georgia is very humid. So that's the thing about down here is it gets hot, but it's also pretty humid. It's humid out there right now. But it's not quite as humid in Kansas, but that's...
So you live in Kansas, does that mean you're a Chiefs fan?
Yeah, I'm a fair weather fan.
Okay,
I went out there.
I like that answer. I like that answer.
Fair weather, and then, with Mahomes, and they've been doing pretty good the last couple of years, so...
I don't know about that. It sounds like he just jumped on the bandwagon, but that's just
I
me.
did. I actually did.
Tell us about what experiences have you had here in the Valley? This is your third time here?
Third time, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about the food? What do you think about the environment? It's a small type of living as opposed to I can just imagine how Kansas is, but I still feel, because I'm originally from Dallas, but I feel like it's smaller, people are nicer, and it's just like, I love it here.
Yeah, no, I didn't really know what to expect. I've never been down, this far down in Texas or whatnot, but it actually kind of reminds me a lot of Wichita. It's kind of a small town, but it's got a lot of things that big towns have, and kind of not, so much traffic and things like that. I mean, just the town overall. And then the people, they've gone to a few different restaurants here. It's been great, and the people are awesome. It just huge kudos. Over my career, I've had the privilege of traveling to, 80 plus auto auctions all over the country. And in most cases, I go to the hotel, go to the auction, go to the airport. It's kind of like the same. It kind of feels the same no matter where you're at. But I have to say, coming here to the Big Valley, this auto auction here is, you got something special going on here.
Thank you.
It's very different, and how you treat your customers, how treat employees, team members, everything. And I'm just happy to be a small part of what you guys are.
Well, we appreciate that. That was I wasn't expecting that, but thank you for that. And we're glad you're here for sure, certainly. So let's talk a little bit about cars. So are you a combustible engine kind of guy, or you're an EV kind of guy, or what kind of guy are you?
So honestly, I'm a process guy.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, so what it means is that everyone's always like, you get in the car business because I love cars and this is my favorite car or whatnot. And to me, it's just a widget through the box, right? I like trucks. I just actually sold my truck I had for 20 something years.
Wow.
It was kind of getting older, so at some point I'll get
It's kind of getting older over 20 years.
After 20 years.
It was kind of getting older over 10 years.
10 years ago, yeah. I had, good close to 200,000 miles on it and whatnot. But I'm kind of, buy one car, stick with it. I like trucks, not fancy. But
So then you sold it, and what did you end up replacing it with?
So actually, since I've been traveling, the car I had went to my daughter because I have 4 kids. And so
nice.
My oldest is turning 16 actually next week. I got 2 daughters that one's birthday's on the 5th, one's on the 6th. So one's turning 5, one's turning 16. So
wow.
The 16-year-old got her second car.
Totally planned. 10 years later, you planned it like that.
Yeah. And so right now we just got 2 cars. My wife's got the car, and then my daughter's got our second car. So
you're the dad.
I'm just Ubering everywhere.
Can I get somebody to take you to the store, please? Can I get
And then my son's getting older, so he's like, "Where's my car?" So I'm like, I'm going to be really out of a car here soon. But
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I know how that is when your kids grow up and they drive, but it is also a good thing because then they have the responsibility. Hey, we need, can you go to the store and pick up whatever? Takes away from you from having to do it because now, hey, you want to be responsible. Show me you're responsible.
Yeah.
Help me out or help mom out or she's cooking dinner or we're gonna do this or whatever. But we're missing this. Can you go get it for us, please? That's it's worth it in my book. But so coming down here to the valley, I know we met when we were in Phoenix, I believe. I know you initially met with Lisa, and Lisa introduced us to you, and then fast forward now, and then you're here for the third time. As we get into your company, Auction Excellence, what made you start this? Or I know you say you're a process guy, or maybe before we get into that, how did you get into the process? Because I know you're an ex-Mannheim guy.
Yep. Yeah, I spent close to 19 years at Mannheim, and then the last 10 years I was, they had an operational excellence team that I was really a part of for most of the time I was there, and ran what they call the outside OpEx. They had inside operations, which was more like the front office, titles, things of that nature. And then my job was the outside operation, so everything around the technology processes for how to move cars, their entire operating routing system, designed like Lot Vision, their tracking system, a lot of the technology, helped design, build, and deploy across their 75 auctions. So that was my background. How I got into it was I was actually hired originally by the head of sales. This was like 20 years ago, and I went through a management training program to be end up on the sales team. And part of the training program was I spent a year at auction going through every department. And while I was there, I was like, this is pretty inefficient. I was like, I don't know how to solve this.
So you identified it right off the bat.
Yeah, I was there and I'm just like, this is like chaos. There's like cars going everywhere and people walking. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. But I was like, I don't know how to solve this. But I was like, someone probably has like thought of this kind of stuff. So I started calling colleges and I found a program at Georgia Tech. And it was an industrial engineering program where they had a capstone program. And so I brought a team of 6 industrial engineers into the auction, and they were having a major issue with their sale day flow, dry lanes were happening, all sorts of stuff. And so we identified the issue, we redesigned their entire flow. It ended up cutting like 20 drivers out of their sale.
Wow.
All the dry lanes went away, everything improved and whatnot. And I put together like an SOP, like a book coming out of the program of the year at the auction. And when I went back to corporate, I had it like sitting on my desk, and the CEO of the company, he saw it and he was like, one of the rotations I was at, and he was like, can I borrow that? And I was like, sure. He took it and he looked at it, and the next day he set up a meeting with me. And I was like, oh no, I've lost my job. And so I went in there and he like talked to me, and I think he was like trying to get to know me. It was like a 30-minute thing. And then I found out later, he was like, Kirk is not a sales guy. Kirk is an operations guy. And so he put me on the like original best practice team. And so that's kind of what started my journey. And then I just started digging into, and I'm a big believer in, like you start with the people and you start at the ground level and work with the people. A lot of times you build things at such a high level, process stuff that it doesn't relate. And so I then started going down and working with the field and figuring out they didn't have access to information. They didn't have access to data. What were their main problems, and started building tools and data, and kept working with the industrial engineering teams at Georgia Tech. So I went through basically like every step of the auction workflow. I had a team spent something like 200,000 hours of time with industrial engineering teams that basically just
And this is besides your regular job?
Yeah, I would work my normal job, and then I would go down to Georgia Tech at night from like 6 to like 11, because that's when
impressive.
And basically at one point I had 5 or 6 teams. So I had like 30 industrial engineers I was managing.
Wow.
And so I had projects that were going, and this went for like 3 or 4 years. But what helped me is understand the data, the flow, how it all interconnects, and what are the root cause issues that we're really trying to solve at an auction. That's what got me, a lot of the requirements and stuff that was able to help, Mannheim over the years build. And since then, my passion is really for like the frontline employee. Like what gets me the most motivated is, if we can get cars through the box faster and we can do stuff, but at the end of the day, it's changing people's lives. Like at every auction, there's 50, 100, 200 people that are working. And if you can empower them to understand how their job is so important in the workflow and kind of unleash them, to me, that's the most gratifying thing. And that's your question you're asking, why did I start Auction Excellence, is that it's a little bit of a play on words of like operational excellence. But what I love more than anything, it's like in my blood, is auctions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like once...
I know the feeling. Yeah.
My goal is how do I help them become excellent?
So that's what fills your tank per se, right? No pun intended. We're in the car business. I love, like, honestly, guys, if you get the opportunity to meet Kirk at one of the future conferences, just sit down and talk to him. This guy's, he's amazing the way he thinks. He's very process oriented, and he was, what you're doing for us, we would never have thought in a million years we'd be able to do what you're doing for us. We share some of the same common values and traits that you just talked about. We want to empower people. We always say, and I tell the employees, I go, we want you to be a better version of yourself each and every day. So when you go home to your wife, your husband, your kids, your grandpa, whoever you go home to, that they see that, hey, this person is becoming better. But it all starts at work, because we spend the majority of our time here at work more than we do at home. Because at home, you're only there a couple hours, then you go to bed, you wake up, and you get to do what you do all over again. Like I always say, I was once told years ago, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when it comes to that.
Yep.
So let's get into now that we talked about Auction Excellence and how it came about. What is the 5-hour process?
Yeah. So actually, I was this week at working with some of your team members, and one of your team members asked me, they're like, so the standard, like one of the slogans of my company is set the standard, right? And he was like, so is what you're putting in play your standard? Is it our standard? Whose standard is it?
That's a good question.
I was like, that's actually a really good question. I was like, that's a good question. I was like, so just think about the workflow is like, from a client perspective, what do they care about, right? They want their car on spot, right? Or, I mean, if you even back it up even further, they want the car in the lane, selling at the highest price. They want it, running in order, right? It's there, it's sold, there's no arbitration. You back it up, the car is on spot, it's parked on the left line, the label's there, everything's organized. You back it up even further, it's, sitting out in inventory, the team is organizing it, ready to pull. You back it up from there, the car's in the detail shop, right? It's getting cleaned to the highest standard. You back it up from there, it's moving into the mechanical check process, is moving into the CR process. All these different steps that go into it. The goal from a client perspective is each one of these steps are hit and the highest quality is hit, but what they're looking for is speed, is as fast as possible. And that's the standard, right? And so it's not every auction, in a sense. The goal is if you could have a car come into your location and be processed in 5 minutes or something, like, why not do that?
Oh, of course.
With the highest quality. So the age-old, thing is, for like when I started, it was like, hey, let's just get every vehicle CR'd in one day, right? And then we'll give another day to sign off the car, and then we'll give another day to get the estimate on the car, and then by the time you're done, it's like 6-7 days. And so that's where I just started thinking, well, why can't we just do all of this in like 5 hours? And that's what kind of got this process starting. And so that's what the 5-hour process is when the car hits the gate. It's stocked in, it's CR'd, the mechanic check is done, the estimates are pulled on the car, and the approval is sent to the client within 5 hours. And the goal of that is that if then the client can basically approve the work same day, that car is now being routed same day, or worst case, the next day to the mechanic shop for the 5% or 10% that have to be done. And if not, a lot of these cars are going right into the detail shop, clean. So as soon as you get the title, this car is ready to sell. So now, as opposed to waiting 7-14 days, you've sped up the process. So another way to think about it is that a lot of times land is, people are like, oh, if I want to grow, I need more land. Well, really, to some extent, you might have to, depending on the volume you're increasing. But on what I find most of the time is on most locations, you probably have 3 to 4 times the processing on the same piece of property just by picking up speed.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that initial 5-hour process.
And we're living proofs of that. And that's, I hope you guys just understood everything he said, because it's a list, right? So when we first heard about it, when he told, when we talked, we're like, wow, that's impressive. Like, could you really do it in 5 hours? And not that we didn't believe in it or anything, but I remember the first time that you visited, and you said, okay, I'm leaving on Friday. We're like, oh my God, he's leaving. What are we going to do when he's gone? Right? Because, you're like, okay, I want to succeed. But I want to make sure that we're doing what we should be doing, because that's the only way it's going to work. You never deviate from the plan. You got to make sure you execute it at all levels. And guys, we are witnesses that it does work. Our times have been cut more than we would ever think. Things are being processed a lot smoother, a lot more efficient, quicker. Responses are being met. Repairs are being done. Parts are being ordered. Like, it's amazing what you can do when you set the correct process into place. And while, kind of like you said, now you don't necessarily need more land. Well, we always thought we needed more land, so we bought more land. And now when Kirk has opened our eyes to it, it's just like, we could have been doing this with a lot less land than what we have. And we're like, too late now. We'll just wait. As we grow, we'll make sure that we use that. So getting into the metrics of it, what would you say, is it 3 different metrics, 5 metrics? What's the number of metrics that are very, very important to an auctions process that can make the difference in, making sure this process works or it's going to fail?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the things I think is important is really, this 5-hour processing is, as soon as the car's hitting the gate, is you're kind of looking at your days of backlog of what you're sitting on, right? So the goal is that, basically everything from the CR process to the mechanic check is being zeroed out within hours. Mm-hmm. As soon as the car is hitting, those cars are completely processed and heading to the shop. And so that's kind of the goal, is like every day, all those cars are complete and they're flowing through. So what you're really looking at is, like, most clients look at what they call cycle time, which is sort of a lagging metric, because you have to have a start time and you have to have an end time, mm-hmm. right? So the car came in on this date and we processed it 2 days later. So the cycle time is 2 days. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we're looking at is what we call days of backlog, which is we want to know how many vehicles are sitting in each of kind of like the queues of work, right? And why that's important is that's the real-time activity of then how you staff your team. So if I've got, 100 vehicles that are sitting in this step and I complete, 10 a day, then I've got 10 days. If I shut the gate down, I've got 10 days of work, right? Which means that if I want to process it in 1 day, I've got to complete 100. Correct. So then what that tells you is 2 critical things. The first is, well, what's the activity rate that my staff needs to be running at, right? So if I'm running it for an hour, that tells you how many people that I need. So do I need to staff more, or is my team, from a productivity standpoint, do we need to design the process to make it where they need to be able to produce at a higher, faster rate by looking at the process? So those are the 2 things. And the other piece is that in the design of this flow is that a lot of times auctions use a lot more space at the entry area of their process because they're not flowing at this quick rate. So the other piece is, if I know that I need, 100 cars of processing are coming in a day and I'm completing that, but I'm completing as I'm going through, I might only need 10 parking spaces. I don't need 100, right? So it's really important that by zeroing that out, what ends up happening is once the backlog starts to grow, then it's like, oh, well, we'll put that off to tomorrow. And then those cars, you move them to another area of your lot. Well, that area was used for something else. And then you move it somewhere else. The next thing you know, the entire lot starts falling apart. Yeah. So that's one thing that we've kind of established here, we call the overwatch or whatnot, is that we've got areas on the property from the ground up. The people that are doing the work are updating information into kind of a chat system. And what that's doing is it's monitoring that area. We're taking a picture of it and it's saying, hey, this is what it should look like. We have an SOP we've defined. This is what it should look like. And these are how many cars are sitting in it. I know my activity rate, so I know my hours of backlog that I'm sitting on, right? And we know that if that goes over, say, 1.5 or 2 hours, red alert. Yeah. That means we need to adjust staffing or something is off. The variability of the volume that's hit, right? So one of the things where we started with this, and it's a constant check, is looking at the, it's all about managing really like variability in the process. So if you think about where's the first area of variability that you have to understand at any auction, that's the arrival rate of the cars that are coming into the property. So, and what you'll find is you start studying that, it's actually very predictable, right? Around your sale day, there's patterns every day that occur, and they're probably around how truckers operate. And once you can understand those patterns that, hey, we get hit with 10 cars here, 50 cars here, 30, whatever the number is, then you know that, okay, well, if I'm going to operate in this 5-hour processing, I need X amount of staff from 10 to 1.
Yeah.
X amount of staff based on this activity rate. And once you understand that, all the chaos, all the stress in the system comes out and it just flows, right? So those are some of the core metrics that play into the system.
And that's awesome the way you describe that, because we have our anniversary sale coming up here September the 18th, so free plug. And usually that's the sale of the year that we run the most cars. Right now we're dealing with about maybe 500 cars or so. I'm so looking forward to see how we process 700 plus cars with the same thing that we put into place, and just seeing the flow of it. And I think more importantly, I think the employees that are out there doing the hard, painstaking work can see that this process does work. It don't matter if you have 300 cars, 400 cars, 700 cars. If you stick to the plan and the process, it keeps on flowing and it never stops. And I think that's beyond anything. That's the beauty of it, that it doesn't limit yourself to, hey, we can only run X amount of cars, because then the process is not going to work for that.
Yep.
No, you can run as many cars as you want and as many cars you can, because the process is going to work no matter what. One of the biggest things in this process is deviating from the process that's set in place. How crucial is it for, when the process is set, in order to achieve maximum results, sticking to the process?
Oh, it's essential. To every step of the process, right, is making sure that you've got a design of how you're doing it, and then we're working with team members to make sure that they're doing it the same way, right? And if we do deviate, right, that's where that needs to be communicated up through all the channels where everyone's on the same page. And that's where a lot of times, like I see, at auctions, things fall apart as one person makes a decision and they deviate and they don't really communicate, and the next thing you know, it's like that decision has a ripple effect through the process. So yeah, it's essential. And one thing you were mentioning was you got a big sale coming up, right? A big anniversary sale, a lot more volume, and that's why sticking to the process is so important, because when that extra volume hits, if we start deviating in any small way, it has a compounding effect on larger volume. So if you can better predict that volume that's coming in and stick to what you're doing, and if something does happen, I always talk about, it's almost like remanufacturing a car. Like you manufacture a car and then the car comes to you and we're identifying, refixing it, all this kind of stuff. But it's almost like an assembly line. Yeah. And part of it is that when you do see a defect in the process or something that needs to be changed, you empower your team members. In the old manufacturing lines, they used to have a cord. It was called an andon cord, and they would pull it, the line would stop. It would come to a halt, and because they realized, all right, that product had a defect, we have to stop where it's occurring, and then they start the line again. And that's kind of similar to the auction processes. We want to build that into the system to where if we identify there's a defect, we empower our team members to pull the line. We saw something off. Let's fix it, let's root cause it, and then let's reset the line again. So we don't have multiple more vehicles going through the process with that same defect or that issue that we originally saw.
That's awesome. Were you always so process oriented since you were a kid, or did this happen in your later part of life or something?
Probably. Just kind of.
I know it's a side question. As you're talking, I'm like, your self-awareness to be able to identify something like that, and and kind of using the Ford assembly line, in that kind of type of mentality, was like, wow, that's awesome. So another question, what is, if I'm an auction that is seeking, help in my process, are there certain qualifications that you look for when trying to see if you can work with an auction? Or is it, hey, I'm sure I can fix any auction out there?
Well, like any person can improve, right? And an auction or any business is just made up of a bunch of people, right, that are going after a common goal. So I have a belief that any person can get better, can improve, can make the most of themselves, like you're saying, become a better version tomorrow, and any business or system can do that as well. And nobody's perfect and no system is perfect, but that's the goal, is every day driving continuous improvement, driving towards that excellence, setting a new standard. Everyone's got a standard and you can raise that standard. So can any business improve? Yes. There's 1,000 ways to get in. I would say, biggest qualification is that a lot of times it starts with the leadership, right? I mean, you guys have been amazing here, because from Lisa to yourself to Blanca to the entire kind of leadership team here, you guys are all in. You guys bought the vision, you saw it, you're doubling down on what you're doing, you're working with the team members, you're active, you're in the field, you're talking through it. And where I see it fail a lot of times is where there's kind of a disconnect between the leadership team and the people that want to change, that are doing the work, but the leader of, say, the business isn't all in, right? And if that's the case, you're only going to get subpar results, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the essential piece, is that once, I always say that, 99% all in is the toughest thing you'll ever do in your life. 100% all in is easy as can be.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the critical thing, is once the leaders go all in and they can translate that and bring hope to the people in the field that things are going to get better, we're going to make it, we're going to do whatever it takes to make this work, then it just comes down to, it's basically math, right? It's like, you look at your property, how do things flow? How do the cars move? We can come up with different options. We can try, we can fail, we can make it better. We can put data and systems in place. And once you get that and you've got that winning attitude, anybody can improve. Right?
See, and years ago, and this is a side note, we have a book club here at the auction. I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, we read this book, The Secret Lives of Navy SEALs, right? And there was a part in that book where, we really took it to heart, where, the commanding officer had, his guys, and he's like, how do you create buy-in? He's like, well, you get in the trenches with them. You show them that, hey, I'm not too good that I can't do what you're doing. I'm just as good as you are, because you're doing it.
Yep.
And I think and that's one of the things that resonates in my head, that we always do that. No matter if it's picking up a car, washing a car, moving a car, parking a car, putting a label on it, whatever it is, we're always 100% in to make sure that they see it. Because then you create buy-in, and that's what you want. Let's shift a little bit real quick. Let's talk about AI. Right. Yep. So there's a lot of great things out there in AI. How do you see AI playing a role in this process?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, just understand like what is AI and how AI works, is basically it's just a, if I was to say a chicken crossed the, what would you say?
Road.
Yep, road. You're like an AI machine, right? You just did the probability, and that's all AI is doing. Is it's just taking a bunch of information, it's creating kind of vectors of probability of saying, well, this connects to that and this connects to this or whatnot. And so really, when you think about it, there is a massive amount of information at the auction. And the quicker we can take that information that's in the heads of these people and put it in an organized manner in the right point, whether it's in the beginning of the process or we're collecting a CR, we're collecting a mech inspect, how do we organize that to get better disclosures on a vehicle, right? How do we use information, later in the process that we're collecting to, determine, like maybe even taking pictures of the car or whatnot and determining damage defects on a vehicle or whatnot, and bringing that information where it's clear and concise to where you can make quicker exceptions. Like the thing about an auction that is kind of unique is that I think of things in like rhythms. Like you've got, daily rhythms that you live by, right? There's weekly rhythms, there's monthly rhythms, there's yearly rhythms, but an auction has a very specific weekly rhythm that goes on. And a lot of times where auctions kind of fall apart or have struggles is that they push everything to the last minute. And so that's where I see AI kind of coming in, is that things that was taking us a lot of time to process through, if we can speed those things up, it takes a lot of the friction out of the system. And we push things back so that we're not waiting the last minute to get cars on spot. We do that the day before. And that gives us 4 hours or a day to go check the line and do things around the data to perfect the process of what we're doing, right? Yeah. And so I think, honestly, AI is going to play a big part. Like, it's not going to, take every human out of the loop of every situation, but there's a lot of different pieces, which is the magnitude of data that auctions are sitting on that can make the process so much better.
Yeah, and I think, with efficiency, we're trying to be as efficient as we can and as productive as we can. And I think somewhere down the lines, when we do introduce AI into our process, I think that's just going to make us even better than we already are. And I think it's going to help us process cars, quicker and more efficient. And because you still have to have somebody, being able to push the button, start it, turn it off, or whatever it is. So you'll still have that. It's just very interesting the way we are now, heading into new eras that, we've never thought we were. At least I didn't when I was growing up. I would never think that a car could drive itself or whatever. And, you go different places in the country and you see cars like, wait, there's nobody driving that car. Oh, it's an autonomous car. It's driving itself.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's crazy. So, to close it up, let's just, I like to ask, maybe I'm a big quote guy and I love living by quotes, and I try to preach them on, and I definitely practice, everything that I try to say, and sometimes I'll fall short. Is there something that Kirk lives by that maybe you heard a year ago, 10, 20 years ago, that you're like, this is me, and this is who I'm going to be, and this is who I'm going to help my kids push them, and hopefully they can understand this particular quote?
Yeah. I think, one that's really, changed my life in a lot of ways is belief without questioning is not a belief, but compliance.
No, nice.
And what,
say that again?
Belief without questioning is not a belief, but compliance.
Nice.
And so when you think
about that,
with your kids or with your teammates in the field, a lot of times we tell people what to do, right? And they just go do it. And so when you think about it, they're just complying.
Yeah.
Right? They don't really believe in the vision, the mission, what you're doing, right? And I'm a big believer that every business should have a vision of where you're going. Like you have a North Star. And so therefore there's a belief system and a standard that you're creating to get to that North Star. But what you want to create within yourself is question, well, how am I going to do it? How am I going to get there? And then the other piece is you want everybody to believe in that as well that's on this mission with you, but they're only going to get there by allowing them the space to question and ask and understand and get into it. And so if that's where a lot of times when, with your kids or I found, or with, teammates or people that you're working with, if all of a sudden you feel like they start shutting down, let them ask questions or ask them questions, right? And that's
empower them, because I think that's what it is, and that's awesome. It's not just compliance, guys. It's a team collaborated effort, because we should all have the same common goal in everything that we do.
Yep.
And that's because you take care of the company, and the company is going to definitely take care of you, and that's what we do here at Big Valley. Well, Kirk, our time has come to an end. It's a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we can keep on talking, but I'm sure Evgeny's like, cut it.
Yep.
But thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for what you'll continue to do, because I know this is not your last time down here. And thank you for believing in our employees that they can achieve a higher greatness of efficiency and productivity, because the proof is there. The numbers are there, and they're getting better, by the week. Thank you for all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Guys, stay tuned. This is just one, and we got more coming. We're going to make sure that we deliver everything to you, and make sure that we stay active. Make sure we're bringing podcasts with good, reliable information that you can always reach out. Don't forget that here at Big Valley, we're driving excellence. Help you succeed one car at a time, because when you're here, you're family. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.